Welcome to another edition of Inside Board Games. We are at NerdFest on location, and we're talking today to Mat Cousineau. How you doing, Matt?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Now, Mat Cousineau represents a lot of things. Now, I love talking to Mat Cousineau because I love saying Cousineau, and his game is called Kuiperium, and I love saying Kuiperium for some reason. But also, we've started to come full circle. If you've watched the channel before, when we came to NerdFest last year, Jason and I played Kuiperium, and we loved it so much. You know, we're like, let's do an interview with Matt, you know, and talk a little bit about his game. And at that point, I think it was, where was it a year ago?
I had received my very first ever prototypes here.
Oh,
because
that's right, they were shipped here.
Yeah, because I was having them printed at the Game Crafter, and I was concerned that with customs and whatnot that it might get hung up, and it might, because I'm Canadian.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, so we're in Michigan, and he's from Canada.
Yeah, so I was worried that maybe the games wouldn't get to me in time before I could come here.
Right.
So I just had them shipped right to Ryan, who's the kind of the
from the Gamecasters.
Yeah, from the Gamecasters who put this all together here at NerdFest. So yeah, I had them shipped here. So when I got here, I had opened the boxes and seen my own prototypes for the very first time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was fun to do that, and yeah, we were at that point would have been just a few months out from launching the Kickstarter.
Okay, so we sort of come full circle. Now back at NerdFest again, and let's talk about where Kuiperium is today, because it's also sort of, it had just gotten the prototype last year, and right now it's sort of just hit a milestone.
Yeah, just recently. So the Kickstarter launched in May of last year. And we started fulfilling in January of this year, and it being April now, we're just kind of finishing up fulfillment with a few games straggling to get out to Australia and some other remote locations.
Oh.
But yeah, so the fulfillment's just finishing up now, and the game is just starting to hit retail. So we're sending out those boxes to retailers and becoming available through wholesale. Retail, wholesale, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
How's that? I mean, tell me about the journey over the last year. I mean, it's probably been a lot of highs and lows, and
definitely. Yeah.
So was it sort of as you expected? Tell me a little bit about how that played out.
You know, they tell you it's a lot of work, and like when the Kickstarter, you know, when the Kickstarter is successful, you know, you're told, okay, now the work starts, which I always thought was funny because it takes so much work to design a game.
That's got to be deflating.
Yeah,
you get to the top of the mountain, and they're like, oh no, that's the mountain over there. It's twice as big.
Yeah. So yeah, they weren't lying, and it's definitely. I wouldn't even say it's harder work. It's just different work. The business side of things, right? Like spreadsheets and bills and red tape and bureaucracy and dealing with customs and shipping companies and you know, just all of the retailers and all of this stuff that, you know, usually if you're a game designer, you're probably a creative brain person.
Yeah, sure.
You're not a type A personality. Some exceptions, I'm sure, but I certainly am not. And it, you know, falls on me to deal with all this stuff, and I'm not good at it, and I don't like it.
So is it just you?
It's very difficult. But
what's the name of your company?
Whitewater Castle.
So it's Whitewater Castle.
Yeah,
okay.
and we publish Kuiperium alongside Dragon Egg Games.
Okay, so I knew Dragon Egg Games was also in the mix.
That's
I didn't
right.
want to mention it in case that was like an old name.
No, yeah. So Dragon Egg Games is basically Max Robbins is Dragon Egg Games.
Okay.
And for us going into this for the very first time, having no idea what we're doing, we partnered with Max, who's done Kickstarters before,
Right.
is a successful publisher. So he helped us through our journey of our first, you know, self-published game.
So were you able to focus then on the creative stuff? I mean, how much help is it giving you now post funding on Kickstarter where the business comes in?
Sure, yeah. The agreement with Max was mostly to like leading up to Kickstarter and getting the Kickstarter done. And he's still basically acting as a consulting and helping us out and providing guidance and that sort of thing. But all of the work obviously has to be done by us, right?
Sure.
So, and that's the stuff that I'm just not great at and that I don't love. But it is at the same time very rewarding, right? Because like as you jump through these hoops and get these things done, more games get out, more games get in people's hands, and you start to see the fruit of your labor.
Sure. I mean, you said us. How many are on your team?
So it's myself and my partner, Steve Castle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What's been the most maybe pleasant surprise? I'm sure there's a lot of a lot of challenges along the way. A lot of times you came around a corner and ran into a wall. But what's been kind of like a better thing?
Yeah. The biggest surprise and probably the most rewarding thing is seeing how much people love the game. There's such thing as an imposter syndrome, right? Where you feel like you don't belong, like you've done this thing, but it still doesn't feel like you're a game designer, right? Or a publisher.
Yeah.
And that's been, from the beginning, something that's been there, and less as you go along. And Steve and I felt like we had a great game, like, as you're playing, but obviously you're biased, right? Because you made the game. I'm having a blast playing it, but I could very well just be biased. It's really difficult to tell what you have because you're so much part of it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You sometimes can't see the forest for the trees because you have done every mechanic, and you can't really see if there's a problem with something.
Sure.
You don't know if a card is hard to read because you've been staring at that card on your computer screen for months.
And you're talking about the technical stuff, but I'm just talking about the general fun of the game.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like I'm having fun, but when you're in a picture, you don't see the whole picture because you're in it. Right, so it's the same thing with something like a game design, and then I show it to family and friends, and they all love it, of course.
Right. Yeah.
And then you play test with people, and they seem to love it, but how much do you believe them? Because they're telling you, right, to your face.
Yeah, a lot of times, how much of it is they're telling me what I want to hear.
Yeah. So now that the game's out in the public, and we've sent the game to a whole bunch of reviewers. And part of our marketing strategy from the beginning was not to pay for any reviews or any content. We wanted people to have their honest opinions out there.
Right.
So we sent the games to all these reviewers, and then and so on top of that, and having sent the games out to our backers now, the reviews are starting to come in on BGG and comments and things like that, and it's overwhelmingly positive.
No,
right,
nice.
and it's really, really rewarding, and that is what I would say is the biggest surprise. And even though we've heard it from the beginning,
right,
it just feels super gradual to finally shed that imposter syndrome, to be like, we actually made a great game that people are loving, and that's probably the funnest part of this whole thing.
I mean, all the kudos seem more legit when they're coming from total strangers, which is weird, because we're sort of conditioned to don't let total strangers define you and assign you your worth. But I think it's something like this. So not really doing it for you; it's for your product, for your game. So I think in that sense, it's more legitimate because if I create something and my best friend says, "Hey, that's awesome." Yeah, that's good. That feels good. But are you saying it because you like me, or you like the product?
Exactly. Yeah.
So over the last year, how or has Kuiperium changed over the last year?
A tiny bit, maybe, right? We were months away from fulfilling at the last NerdFest, a year and four months ago or so. And it's funny because I was talking to another designer, and he's more at the beginning of his journey, and he has what he thinks is pretty close to a final product in terms of the design. And he asked me the question, when do you stop tweaking, or when do you know it's ready? And the question was, you never, ever stop tweaking until you have no choice but to hit the print button and actually print 1,000 of these games.
Right.
That's when you stop, because there's just always a little thing or a little question that could be clarified. But when you get to the point where you're making so few changes, and the changes that you're making are so minute, or it's just wording changes on a card, just to help clarify things a bit, I think that's when you know.
Yeah, and I think you probably get to a point where you're kind of going back and forth, and it's like, okay, we've had it this way, changed it, now we went back. It's like, okay, it's time to...
Yeah, so maybe to provide a little bit more context to your question, we had worked really hard for about a year from conception to design completion. Not development completion, graphic design, art, whatnot, but design completion, right? So it was about a year, and then it was about another year of just tweaking, playing with things, making small adjustments, and then primarily working on art, graphic design, marketing, and getting ready for Kickstarter.
Okay, so you're starting to sell the games, but you haven't sold 1 million copies yet.
Yet.
So let's kind of go over to our audience, the people that might not be familiar with Kuiperium. You know, let's kind of give them a taste of the game.
I'll give the elevator pitch. So Kuiperium is a 2-player head-to-head, fairly competitive, very tense 1v1 style game, where you could take an action, I take an action, you take an action, I take an action, and you go back and forth until somebody wins. And it's basically a race, and so it's very tense, and that was very chess-like. You're just always trying to tactically move yourself just a little bit further ahead to try to win that race, and keep your opponent off just enough to try to keep yourself at an advantage and whatnot. The way that you do that, or mechanically what the game is that there's a grid where you're placing cards into a tableau. I'm placing cards on my side of the board, you're placing cards on your side of the board. Every card I'm playing is creating a situation where I'm going to be able to cash my cards in for big points later on. In the meantime, while my cards are sitting out there, every card that I've played has a worker placement location that only my opponent can use.
So, I mean, literally, it's printed so half the card facing you and half the card facing your opponent across the table. So when you, just to clarify, when you play a card, I now have access to my side of that card that you just played.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very much about placing cards or the timing of putting cards down so that I can try to cash them in and get the abilities and get the benefits from that card without letting you take advantage of that card too much. So timing is a huge part of this game, where I might put something out that I know you're going to be able to use once or twice. And if it's a great card for me, that's one of the great things, is that we're able to self-balance each individual card.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of components to each card. So if a card was really great for me, had an amazing ability on it, then it'll probably have a really great worker placement location for you. So when I'm placing that card, I'm getting a big benefit from it, but I'm going to want to try to get rid of that card and take it away from you as quickly as possible. So timing and the tactics and strategy of that becomes really important, and that's what makes the game so tense right up until the end.
Yeah, it's always pretty close. You're moving, if I remember correctly, there's a track you're moving up to try to, first person to the end.
That's right, yeah.
Wins that. Now, I remember saying this before when we talked about Kuiperium, when Jason and I played it. Jason and I usually don't like 2-player games, and we usually gravitate towards cooperative games.
This is very much not that.
Given those two things, we loved this game. We thought it was completely amazing.
I will say, I've heard that 1,000 times in the last 2-3 years. People that don't like Take That, there is a fair amount of Take That in this game. But I think the really important thing, and something that we really focused on in the design, was to set it up so that I'm not tearing down what you've built. At worst, I'm typically putting you back an action or two. I'm setting you back in your plan, but I'm not destroying what you've worked on. And that was the key to making sure that, yes, there's some Take That, but it's more of just a pushback than it is completely destroying or taking down what you've been working hard on.
Yeah, and I would even really categorize it as a lot of Take That. you know, a lot. It's definitely competitive, definitely tense, but I didn't notice, probably because there's
It's
not
more of a pullback. I'm pulling you back a bit. You're jockeying, right?
Right, exactly. More jockeying. You know, because I play some games where, you know, someone can just destroy what I've been working on the whole game, and now I'm, you know, now I'm just sitting here waiting for the game to end because I know that I'm out.
Yeah, that's fair.
This one was very close and very balanced. I think when you have take that in the game, as long as you have balance in the game, then it just makes it more fun.
Well, you know what the biggest piece of that is that it's a 2-player game.
Right.
So when I sit down through a 3 or 4 or more player game and there's a bunch of take that, every time I get taken, I feel targeted, and that feels bad.
Well, there's strategy to that where out of the 4 people, as soon as one person gets hit, it's like, okay, well, strategically, we all have to hit that person because they're weak. We have to knock them out.
They become the easy target, yeah. But in a 2-player game, there's only one target.
Right.
So there's a lot less feel bad because there's only one person to target. So I don't feel like you're trying to take me down instead of Johnny over here.
Right. Yeah. Interesting from a psychological perspective.
Yeah, because I'm a big Euro game player. Like, I love Euro games and I love the puzzle of them. But I love a Euro game that has a lot of interaction, player interaction. I want to be involved with the other people at the table. I want to care what the other people at the table are doing. So that's why a game like Dune Imperium is one of my all-time favorite games.
I just played there recently. It was amazing.
It's fantastic, really, because I can, there's very Euro-y, right? Resource management, hand management, all these things that are very Euro game. But there's this big conflict that you can take part of. But it's something that we're all trying to compete for, as opposed to trying to tear down what the other people are doing.
Yeah.
Right? So there's ways to do it, and this is what we set out to do, is make a card game where there's lots of interaction, but at the end you don't feel bad.
So you've sort of made your passion into your job.
Sort of.
Some people say never to do that. I mean, do you still find as much joy in gaming? Do you have time to, take a weekend for gaming and stuff, or is it all kind of like, I really love this game, but it kind of consumes all of my time to get it out and get it done?
Yeah, I set out to make this, this is a hobby first and foremost. And you call it a job or whatnot. That label gets put on there because there's money involved, right?
Okay.
But
well, you hope there's money involved.
There's money involved going out.
Right.
There's not a lot of money in board games. I want to say 95% of people who are involved in board gaming, in the production side of board gaming, are doing it because it's fun and it's a passion, not for the money. There's not a ton of money in it. There's probably some niche scenarios and that where people are doing well, but it's not the little guys kickstarting a small game. We're not the ones making any cash on this. The goal is to try to pay our bills and have a game out there, have a thing that I created. So we've achieved that, and now it's time to try and pay some bills. But yeah, my passion for gaming has never changed, and I've never allowed the creation of Kuiperium or the publishing of Kuiperium to damper my love for games. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Dune Imperium, so you do play other games.
For sure, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Which is good. I mean, not to bite the hand that sort of has been, helping you out or feeding you, so to speak. What do you think of the whole Kickstarter thing? Because from my perspective, it seems like Kickstarter is getting sort of taken over by a lot of bigger companies that just make it part of their business plan. Instead of going to, raise the money ourselves or going into our cash reserves, we're going to release our second game just on Kickstarter so we don't have to do that. But then you've got a big company that sort of creates a lot of noise, and it's harder for the smaller independents to kind of get noticed.
Yeah, it's a weird double-edged sword, because without these big companies, would Kickstarter have ever become what it is? right? Would it have been as popular and as mainstream as it is to allow a little guy like me to make a tiny game and, raise enough money to produce it? But, would it have been there at the level that it is now if it wasn't for the CMONs?
Okay.
If we take away the history and just look at the now, it's very much a double-edged sword. It feels like to me, and I'm not a connoisseur of the industry by any stretch.
Sure.
This was my first Kickstarter, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt and at face value. But what it feels like now is that these companies don't need Kickstarter in the way that I need Kickstarter if I'm going to make a game.
That makes sense.
Because I don't have $40,000 to just print games and ship games all over the world.
Because didn't the makers of Gloomhaven, didn't they put Frosthaven on Kickstarter? Which to me seems, okay, Gloomhaven was a huge success.
Yeah.
Now, you're telling me that as a company, you don't have any capital for your follow-up game?
Right.
And it just seems, I don't want to, tick off people that love Kickstarter, but as someone who with a limited amount of money to give places, I feel a little bit cheated by now. Here's this company that's doing really well, expecting me to front them, an interest-free loan to, do something. I think that Kickstarter is there for the little guy, and I think that's the perfect business model. But yeah,
I think if we lived in a perfect world, that's what it would be. Unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic world.
Yeah.
And Kickstarter's not about to say, no, Simon, don't give me all of this money.
Right.
So I'm using the word Simon, but there's like so many
There's
other.
a lot,
and I'm a fan of Simon. So like, this is not I'm not trying to cast shade on any of these companies.
Yeah, we love you, Simon.
For sure. Like, keep doing what you're doing. It's just it's a strange topic, and it's a difficult topic, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah, and it's that
you almost wish that there was like a separate company or a separate Kickstarter where, I don't even know, because at the same time, how many of my backers, right, were attracted during my campaign? How many of my backers went to Kickstarter to back a CMON or see how their CMON campaign was going, or any number of other publishers, and stumbled upon Kuiperium and said, "Oh, this looks cool," and backed it.
as long as
So
Kickstarter.
how much do I owe CMON credit for my success? It's probably not a huge amount, but there's some there, and that's part of it. It's a strange topic, and I hear what you're saying, but I think you got to take the good with the bad. It's probably what ultimately we have to do.
It seems to be working. So far.
Yeah.
It's
It's getting saturated, and there's just so much out there. But at the same time, it's allowing little guys like me to have my name on a box in the store down the street, which is pretty fantastic.
And it's a nice box. The art in this game is really good too. I'm kind of a sucker for art. I will give a game a lot of extra points,
Right.
If there's like humor in it, and if the art is really cool.
Right.
So the art.
Yeah, we're really proud of the art and the graphic design. We're really proud of our product. We think it looks great, and as I said, we think it plays great, and that's being echoed back to us from strangers. So yeah, we're really excited about it. The issue at this point is just like, how do I get my game noticed, right? Like, I pre-sold 400 copies on Kickstarter, and they're out there now, and there's 40 or 50 reviews on BGG, and they're overwhelmingly positive. I think it's 8.8 right now on BGG.
Nice.
So that feels great. So like, it feels like we've done what we had to do to like make a great product and get it out there. But like, I think the market is so saturated with great games, which is like an amazing problem to have. As a gamer myself, I love at every corner. I'm at a gaming convention, and I've played like 10 games this weekend that like put on my buy list. You know, so like I'm complaining, but at the same time, it's an amazing time to be a board gamer.
Right.
But it's just a strange position to be in, where I know that like, how do I get my game to the next level where people are noticing it? Because it does feel like if enough people play this game, it could do really well. It could become a mainstream game.
I mean, it comes down to marketing. Yeah. And to that end, I mean, what's your focus? I mean, do you come to a lot of things like this? Are you trying to do a lot of in-person teaches and plays? Are you focusing on social media? Like,
again, because I'm not a major publisher, I have no choice but just go grassroots, right? I don't have money. We're still trying to pay bills, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have the money to just market like crazy. So it's just grassroots efforts. Do stuff like this with guys like you, and come to conventions and host Learn to Plays. Yeah, I just hosted a Learn to Play for 6 people, and I think 4 of them bought a game. So that's the kind of stuff that I have to do.
Are you going to go to like Origins or Gen Con?
Going to Gen Con. So look, come and see us at Gen Con. Look for the Dragon Egg Games booth. We'll be there. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you're going to be doing like plays there and.
Yeah, so Dragon Egg Games is purchasing a table for the weekend, and Dragon Egg Games has like 4 or 5 games. So we have a day and a half of that booth strictly for Kuiperium.
Oh, okay.
And then for the rest of the time, Steve and I are going to be in the general play areas, probably trying to demo our game and doing this grassroots effort of just trying to get eyes on our game.
Well, that's a good place. Were you at Gen Con last year?
No, this will be my first time, so I'm really excited.
Okay. So your first time ever being there?
Going to Gen Con, yeah.
Okay.
I hear it's crazy. I'm
crazy.
I'm super excited, yeah.
The biggest problem I always find at Gen Con is you sit down and you learn an amazing game. And you pull out your money and you say, I want to buy this game. And always is like, sorry.
We're sold out.
Yeah. Or, really what's worse is, we're sold out for today, but come back tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and stand in line for an hour.
And then you do that, it's like, oh, we're sold out again. Well, try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wish that they would have, I get it. They can't bring a million games, to Gen Con. But it'd be nice if they could bring okay, here, you buy it now and we'll give you free shipping, or something like that. That would be really nice. It seems like every time I go to Gen Con, there's this one game that, I just can't get.
Fair, yeah.
But so.
Looking forward to it.
heads up, you are going to find people that are going to want to buy your game.
Yeah. We're hoping to bring enough copies. Yeah, if we sell out of the copies we're bringing, we're going to be happy. And so, fingers crossed, come and see us at Gen Con.
What else is kind of on the horizon for you? I know you got a lot of marketing going on, or you're pushing this game out. You got a lot of work going. Do you have anything else in the hopper?
We're working on a couple of games. Nothing really that we can talk about at this point. It's just nothing's advanced enough that we know for sure that this is happening. But we are working on a couple of games, and I think a Kuiperium expansion is a real possibility too in the next year or so. A lot of that depended on how well Kuiperium did. So we're going to take the next couple of months and continue these grassroots efforts. And if we feel like there's enough love out there for Kuiperium, then I think we'd like to do an expansion that has a 3 or 4 player variant.
I was just about to ask what the expansion would look like, and I was hoping that you could say that. Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be one of the main focuses, to have that 3-4 player variant for a few different reasons. Like, selfishly, just for marketing optics of it. Not to say that we wouldn't put our heart and soul into a 3 or 4 player variant. We want to make sure that you get the same experience that you get playing the 2-player game in a 3 or 4 player game. So that's going to be something that we'll have to work probably fairly hard on. Because of all the things and the take that and the feel bad and all of the things that we just discussed. We want to make sure that if you sit down to a game of Kuiperium, that you're going to get a similar experience without any of that feel bad. So
would it be possible to make like a 2v2 instead of a 1v1?
We did think of that, and it is a possibility. We're just going to have to test these things and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I just know for sure that when I sit down and play a game of Star Wars Rebellion and try the 2v2 variant, it's just not. It's not a 2v2
Well,
variant.
it's 1v1. We're two. Yeah, it's cheating to call it, but it opens up the fun game experience to more people. You know, you got four people in your gaming group. Yeah,
you get four people at the table. As far as I'm concerned, if you're just pasting on, like just do it as a team, kind of thing. Just leave it as a 2-player game, like we did, and you know, if you want to play a 4-player war game, go play a 4-player war game.
Sure.
That's my opinion on the matter.
Yeah.
And we just want to make very sure that we're not going to paste anything on just so that we could put the numbers 3 and 4 in our box and sell to more people.
Right. Well, that's as a game player, thank you. You know, thank you for not just repackaging something.
And not to cast too much shade on Star Wars Rebellion. It's an all-time favorite game of mine.
Disney, we love you also.
Just don't play it at 4 players. Play something else.
Right. Cool. So, where's the best place for people to find and connect with Kuiperium these days? Dragonhead Games?
Yeah, dragonheadgames.com. You can buy Kuiperium there. If you go to the Kuiperium Kickstarter page, you can still late back it.
Okay.
And then it ships, pretty much immediately or within a week or so. So that's how you can buy it now. And then, depending where you are, in Ontario and Canada, there's a bunch of stores that are carrying it already, just from me going door to door and selling cases.
Oh, nice.
But it's going to be available through wholesale retail to the retail stores literally in the coming weeks. So hopefully if you search for Kuiperium on any of the bigger stores, online stores, hopefully they'll be carrying it, or at least they'll have the option to carry it.
Okay, so if you're watching this video when the video comes out, it should be around the time, probably a couple of weeks from today. So yeah, it should be good.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining me. I'm so glad that Kuiperium is doing well. Go out and find this game, buy this game. If you're going to Gen Con, come see Matt, come see Dragonhead Games at Gen Con. And thanks for tuning in for this edition of Inside Board Games. We'll see you next time.